Hey there, welcome back to our channel. My name is Val and I'll be your instructor today. So today we'll be covering Python functions as part of our introduction to Python series, and I'll be doing this in Google Colab. Well, if you're not well acquainted with Google Colab, we have a tutorial on getting started with Google Colab, and I will link it in the description box below. So let's get started. We may be wondering, why should we use functions? Functions are designed to help us achieve a specific task without having to duplicate any code. So let's look at the general syntax of a Python function. So when creating a Python function, the first thing you need to do is declare it. So you do that by using the keyword def, and then after you have declared that this is a function, the next thing you do, you give it a name. So in our case, let's call ours data play. When it comes to giving names to functions, one important thing that you should note is that names should be in small letters and there should be no spaces. So for example, if data play were two words, instead of a space in between data and play, we can put there an underscore like that. So after we have successfully given a name to a function, the next thing we do is to create an argument. So an argument is the name of a variable that the function will use. So let's just give ours an argument called play, and then after that you end that line with a colon. So once you have declared the function, you have given it a name and given it an argument, your code will go here, and then once you are done writing your code, the next thing you do is to declare the end of the function. So you do this with the keyword return. So basically return indicates the end of a function. So now that we have a general idea of how a Python function looks like, let's look at some example of Python functions. So Python functions can either have no argument, can have one argument, or can have many arguments. So let's look at an example of a function that has no argument. So as usual, we define using def, we declare that it is a function, then we give it a name. So in our case, we'll call it hey there. So hey there, and since it has no arguments, we'll leave it blank, then our colon. When we go to the next line, as usual, indentation is very important. So we'll create a variable called message and assign to it the string welcome back. So once we have assigned a string to the variable, we will show that we've come to the end of the function with the keyword return. And what do you want the function to return? We want it to return the variable message. So return then message. So that is the syntax for a function with no argument. Let's look at the syntax of a function with one argument. So as usual, again, def. So in this one, we'll also call it hey there. Let's just give it okay, let's call it hey. Then an argument, let's give it viewer. Then in the next line, we create a variable and assign a string to it. Then just to show the end of the function, we return the message, the variable message. So that's basically how a function with one argument looks like. So next part, we are going to create a function with many arguments. So for this case, let's say we want to calculate the amount earned by a worker at the end of the day based on the number of hours worked by the worker. So in this case, we start with def, then we give our function a name. So let's say it's called pay. So the arguments that the function will use are number of hours, number of hours, and pay per hour. So as you can see, multiple variables. So we go to the next line and we declare that gross pay is equals to number of hours, our argument you recall, times pay per hour, like that. So when returning, we'll return gross pay. We'll return gross pay, yeah, that variable there. At this point, we know what a function is, the types of functions, the syntax of a function, and you may be wondering, so how can we put this function into use? So that's where calling a function comes in. So for this part of the tutorial, we'll be using this function that we have created here, this one with many arguments. So let's just copy it, Control-C, and then paste. So when we want to call this function, what we'll do, we can create a variable. Let's call it pay per day. So is equals to, you remember the name of our formula, yeah, is equals to the name of our formula, then into brackets. Now we input the number of hours. So let's say, for example, our worker worked for 5 hours, and then the pay per hour is $15 per hour. So we'll input there $15 per hour. Once you have input the values that you want the function to use, you can go ahead and print this variable here. So you can see that the pay for the worker for that specific day is calculated. So we've come to the end of our tutorial today. Please feel free to try out creating as many functions as possible. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section, and we'll be happy to respond to your queries. Also, we'll be linking the GitHub link to this code that we have created today, and we hope to see you in the next video. Have a good day.